just check that your mic is on.
I don't know, is it on?
All right.
Okay.
Let me get to
I'm
my-
sorry that I'm keeping my purse on, but that's where all the wires are going.
That's fine. We say no matter who you are or where you are, and we also mean what you wear, what accessories you bring with you. So
I just, needed to be clear about that.
Yeah. So, Eve, we have talked a little bit about this conversation.
Yes, and you remember it better than I do.
And we've been talking this month about the gifts of being trans and non-binary, and in particular about how those experiences can illuminate new things about God for all of us, that it is a gift to us to have that understanding. And I wondered if you might share a little bit for us, for what you're willing to share, about how your experience of coming out as a trans woman shaped or transformed your understanding of yourself. I know, small question.
Small question.
We just start out,
I'm going
from
to
the
start
gate.
out, I'm just going to start out by saying, first you have to understand how I was before I came out, which was really careful all the time. Really kind of distanced from myself because honestly, when I was young, through my young adulthood, through my adulthood, there was no word transgender. You were possibly transsexual, and that meant that you had to go away and get surgery and never come back to your friends, your family, or whatever. The only program that existed at the time, and a friend of mine tried to do that program, but then they told her when she was that they'd have to divorce their wife, leave their job, move away from their city.
So life was over if you decided to.
It was like witness protection program without any of the benefits. Because they just sent you out on your own. They literally basically said, okay, we'll do this for you, we'll give you this surgery, and then you go out that door and you go, whatever direction that is until you don't know anyone.
Yeah.
And start over. And for me, I always thought that if I even admitted that there was some possibility that I was something else, that it would mean that I was crazy and that I would end up in a hospital.
Not a healthy life. You didn't envision a healthy
No healthy life.
whole life
No.
for yourself.
And so mostly I condemned myself and did everything I could not to give myself away, and that mostly not to myself. But coming out, oh God, it's like relaxing for the first time in your life. It's like being able to be present for the first time in your life. And really getting to know people in a different way. Because the first thing I discovered was to know anyone else, you have to let yourself be known. You cannot get around that. When I was coming out, was talking to came out to my cousin, Helene, over the phone. And she asked me, when did I know? And I said, well, if you remember when we were about 8, we were in the yard and you asked me, if I had the choice, would I have been born a boy or a girl? And I was desperately afraid I had been found out. And I had to invent an answer. Why would I want to be a boy? Oh, baseball. Because in the 1960s, girls didn't play baseball. There was no girls' softball team. They just didn't have the opportunity. And so I said, baseball, because boys get to play baseball. And baseball was where was my sanctuary. And that ended up opening up a whole level of conversation with Helene, my cousin, my favorite cousin, and I was her favorite cousin. And all of a sudden, she was talking to me about things that I didn't know about in her family, how it was growing up in her family. And it was a depth of conversation that I hadn't experienced before. That having let myself be known, she could let herself be known.
What a beautiful gift. Wow. Okay, we said this was going to be a holy conversation, but you brought it. When we were talking in our kind of coffee, getting ready for this, I was focused on really all of the terrible things, the legislation that's being passed that's harming trans people right now. And you really didn't want to talk about that. You really wanted to talk about what the gifts are of being trans. You expressed to me how so often we talk about it as a place of suffering or hardship, and you wanted to talk about the joy that you have found in being a trans
yeah, because
person.
we end up defining ourselves by our troubles. And that makes us sound like victims. And I'm going to go off a little bit here.
Really? Eve?
No. Just what seems to be off topic, just for a second. When the George Floyd event happened, the murder happened, all of a sudden during that racial reckoning, it was impossible to listen to the radio or see on TV or online and not hear black people being asked, what is it about being black? What is it like? This must be terrible. This whole thing must be terrible. And every time I heard this, somewhere about 2/3 of the way through the conversation, the black person they were talking to said, wait a second, don't get me wrong. I love being black. I would not be black. And I realized, yeah, it's the same thing. I get impatient with trans people who say, oh, I should have been born a girl, or I should have been born a boy. I'd say, yeah, but then you would have been a completely different person. And who's to say that person still wouldn't be trans? You know, you don't know. And I've seen people, go through this thing. We have high homeless rate, high homeless rate, high substance abuse problems. We have, high suicidality. Suicidality, both in thinking of it and committing it, or trying to commit suicide. Outside, above and beyond what it is for gay kids, you have to go into, tribal situations and other, discrete groups to find the same kind of suicidality. I cannot say that word, sorry. But you give me that list of things that are troublesome, medical, government, social, and I say, why would I ever be trans? It's not worth it. But it is worth it, because you get to be yourself. You get to recognize that your transition is part of your journey in life. And you get to see that other people's transitions are part of their journey. Everyone in this room has gone through some sort of transition. As you age, as you have kids, as you have health problems, as people have health problems, as people are lost. Everything is a transition. Mine is visible. That's the only difference. There is nothing that I feel or go through that isn't something that you can understand. We are all in transition. What we give, the gift that we as trans people give, is that, or trans women at least, because I know trans guys can pass. Simon has to explain to people, no, I'm trans, I really do belong at this Pride Festival. Ignore the fact that I've got a wife and a hipster beard. But for trans women, for most of us, I know some who don't, but some who pass really well. I go to Central Market and they say, oh yeah, transition, right there.
And passing, just so we all understand, means what?
Means that I can go around and nobody even suspects that I'm trans.
So passing means
I look like, then I look and talk like Lauren Bacall. And everybody says, gosh, I thought she was much older than that. So
people can see your transition
yeah.
as opposed to
and if you can be open to my transition, or some kids transition, you will find that you get to be more open to your own transitions. You know, that is the gift that we give, is to, you know, say, yeah, this is what transition looks like. And you are going through your own, and they don't come to a sudden end. You know, if your kids move out of the house, they're not going to move back in unless, well, they move back in. You know, but, you know, and then that's a whole different transition. But, you know, the pain that you're going through, the joys that you go through, nobody sees you at the store and says you're in transition. But you are. They see me and they say, oh, transition. And I can only say, you know, you're only seeing the surface of it, because it goes deep.
You are very generous when you join us here, because you seem to have an ability to sort of translate our spiritual tradition to yours, which is, you've told me, growing up as a Jewish kid.
I am still a Jewish kid.
Yeah.
I'm still a young Jewish girl turned boy, you know, boy turned girl.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Yeah. Yeah. And so you may have a different understanding of the divine, as in our church, all of us have a different understanding of the divine here. But I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how being trans has shown you a new understanding of the divine as you understand it.
I realized when I came out, and the hardest person to come out to is actually yourself, that I had been hiding from myself all this time. I had been so careful about myself, I was in fact hiding from myself. And in a sense, I realized I was also, therefore, thinking I was hiding from God. I was hiding from any spiritual connection, whether it's Jesus or, you know, the unnameable and unfathomable God of my people. That I was somehow disconnected from that. And when I came out, I found myself saying, well, I've got to make things better for the trans community, for people who are over here on this side of the water, who think they have to go to Seattle to find a, you know, community. And I wanted to put together connections here between Port Townsend and Kitsap, you know, Sequim and Port Angeles. And I found myself being able to do that, and coming back, you know, of having found the people in Port Townsend, and coming back and saying, okay, I got them. Now I need to talk to the Navy, because the Navy is was in their first iteration of getting trans people into the Navy before that stopped, and then it started again later. And I know that Blake from here was part of that. I had met Blake at a CrossFit place before Blake was Blake. And I knew what Blake was doing there, you know, because Blake did not look like your average girl. But everybody else would say.
Turns out he wasn't.
Yeah. And I'm not using Blake's old name, but that's the only name I knew Blake by. And I was saying, okay, I'm getting these things together. You know, I've got to get in touch with the Pride organization, and you know, get in touch with Pride. And I'm driving down the road, and I was saying, yeah, I got into the Pride, you know, connect with them. And I all of a sudden stopped and said, "You idiot!" I didn't stop. I just kept driving. But mentally, I stopped and said, "You idiot! You are part of Pride." Oh yeah, I am connected automatically. It's just there I am.
Wherever I go.
Wherever I go. And then I said, and you got to get in touch with the faith community. What? Are you kidding? I mean, you know, it's not like Field of Dreams, this, call, but it was sort of like that.
Well.
And so I ended up here, different times, to be part of the Interfaith Council that was having a meeting here, and I needed to tell them about the Transgender Day Remembrance we were going to be doing at the museum. And the trans person who came with me had to leave right after we made the announcement because she had bad experiences in church. I had this weird thing of, it's not really fair for me to just come when I want something. If I want these people to be involved with me, I've got to be involved with them. So I've been going to, that was in 2017, 16 or 17, fall of that year. And I've been going to interfaith council meetings ever since. That is being touched by, being connected to the divine. My best friends are people who are ministers. I know so many ministers now. I know trans ministers. I know trans rabbis. It's just, this is just ridiculous. We are way overrepresented. But this is what it's like. I can find more connection. I think it's the same as saying that if you let yourself be known, you can, to know anybody else.
Sort of opens you up to that.
It opens you up to know God or not God. Because in my faith, God is absolutely unknowable. We don't have a personal relationship. And we accept that God may not even exist. We are Israel, which means to struggle with God. Not to fight God, but to struggle. Does that answer that?
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned our church's involvement a little bit, and we are an open and affirming church, which means we not only welcome, but affirm and invite participation at all levels of our church, as well as advocating out in the world and society. And what can affirming churches do, like ours, do to celebrate and support trans people and non-binary people and the alphabet mafia, as my 14-year-old likes to call themselves, in our local community, which some of us may be tracking all of the pushback on pride and pride flags in Poulsbo. So our local community and here at church as well.
First off, I am fighting against the alphabet mafia.
Oh, you are not a fan of that term.
No. It becomes very awkward. And I just say,
the string of letters.
The string of letters, because, did a thing with the Bainbridge City Council proclamation, and I was listening to them, and they were doing a proclamation declaring it Pride Month, and every time they, every paragraph of every item, had LGBTQIA plus, and the queer LGBTQ, it was like 8-10 times it was repeated in the proclamation, and I just got up and said, you can do that if you like. I just say, the queer and trans community, because to me, queer and trans covers everything. It's a part of, every gender identity is in the trans umbrella, every sexual identity is in the queer umbrella. You have an umbrella.
We do.
I remember back 2017 or 18, this church held a pride service. We had Reverend Aaron Grayson, and we had Daniel, Rabbi Daniel, from Kol Shalom here, and a cantor. And as far as I know, that was the first pride service that was held here. So I want to congratulate you. I want to thank you all, because what you're doing here today is important. What we as trans people need is the chance to be open about ourselves, to be ourselves, to be accepted. That first song about the name.
I have called you by your name.
Yeah. Says something about, I filled you with spirit, make my children whole, let my children be whole, something like that. I cannot quote it exactly.
Got it pretty good, yeah.
What we need is to help our children be whole. Be filled with the Spirit of Jesus. And I have, from Jesus, he's Jewish, I can say Jesus. The Christ part is, not ours. That's a Greek word, forget it. But filled with the Spirit of Jesus to make whole. Let them be whole. Not to get in their way. We have going around right now all these laws and stuff that you mentioned, all these movements. What bothers me is that people say, I am Christian, and this is, against my faith. I do not understand.
Bothers us too.
Huh?
It bothers us too.
The thing is that we are letting them, and we, as everyone here and me, letting them say that's what Christian means. We need people, here to be able to say in conversations, to take this out in the world and say, I am Christian and I want our children to be whole. God created them as trans kids. Let them be trans kids. Let them be part of the family. But say that I am Christian and. Not I am Christian but. I am Christian and my faith, my God, my Jesus says these are kids who need to be made whole and respected and trusted and loved. Not shoved away and say either you shape up or you ship out however you want, because too often that's by suicide. Too often that's by living on the streets or couch surfing. Too often that is by substance abuse. Too often it means you lose your child one way or another. And the lesson from Abraham and Isaac to me was not what you do to prove your obedience to God. It was a clear statement that you never sacrifice your child to God.
Amen.
You never sacrifice your children to God. And these people who are making these laws are saying sacrifice your children. I want people to say, I am a Christian and, not just here, but everywhere. I want you to reclaim your public place. And that's not that difficult because you don't have to all go on, make speeches or go on protests. This is how you live your life and let you say, I am Christian and. That's really where I come from. And what we're going to be doing at the Pride Festival in Bainbridge Island on Saturday, July 15th in the afternoon, we are going to invite ministers to come up on stage and say, I am Christian and, or I am a believer and is how we're praising it. Because we, like everybody else, are being very careful of using words like Christian and what have you. But for me, I am a believer and. So we hope you'll be part of that. We hope that we are going to put this online, and we hope that people share that. We hope that people can add to that online and say that I too am Christian and I want our children to be whole. I want, and just the shortest message you can. Not a long explanation. I am Christian and God says to make our children whole, and that means trans kids.
Yeah, and there's plenty of scripture in our tradition to support that as well. So Eve, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so kind for you to invite me.
Yeah, well, we are honored and blessed to have you and hear your words. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to return these chairs, and then I will invite us all to rise. And thank you. Rise, and let's reaffirm, after hearing those words, let's reaffirm our open and affirming covenant together. You going to stand up here with me, Eve, even though you...
I thought I was supposed to go back there now. No, you didn't give me this direction.
Oh, I know. We figure things out. Oh, I have to stand a little away from you because of our mics, though.
Okay.
In the spirit of Jesus' message and life, the Suquamish Community Congregational United Church of Christ is an open and affirming church. We welcome and accept all people into worship, participation in church life, full membership and leadership, and are affirming to members of groups that continue to suffer injustice
for reasons that may
include sexual orientation, race, gender identity and expression, ethnic background, age, marital status, physical ability, and developmental difference. In the vision of unity, wholeness, integrity, compassion, and justice, as a community of God's people, we covenant to be open and affirming of ourselves and others as God created and is creating us, of our ordinariness and uniqueness in our exploration and struggle to know more fully our Creator, of our race, heritage, gender identity and expression, marital status, age, and sexual orientation, of our physical, mental, and emotional abilities, of relationships of support and nurture founded on principles of love and justice, single persons, lesbian and gay relationships, extended families, blended families, and nuclear families. In the call of wisdom of action, as God intends, we seek to further our knowledge and understanding of what it means to be richly diverse and humanly similar, to celebrate, enrich, honor, and nurture the whole person, recognizing our sexuality as a gift from God, as a channel through which we experience life, and as an integral part of that wholeness. To live in community with love, respect, responsibility, and trust, finding through diversity, strength, and through inclusiveness, a deepened sense of intimacy with our Creator. To heal the brokenness experienced in ourselves, with each other, and with God. To support and advocate efforts to ensure justice and to condemn all acts of discrimination and violence against persons because of race, age, gender identity and expression, religion, sexual orientation, marital status, ethnic background, or physical, mental, developmental limitations or differences. We recommit to this as a church. Amen. Let's remain standing and sing our responsive song, You Creator God Has Searched Me. This is jazzy, so let's sing. Hey. Please be seated.